guys. Welcome you all to the Insights into Books podcast. Before we start, kindly follow or subscribe us. And if you want summary PDFs, then subscribe us on Gumroad. Links are in description. Now, let's start today's discussion, guys. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into something that, well, I think it could fundamentally shift how you think about money, about success, maybe even, contentment.
It's a big topic.
It is. We're aiming to move beyond the usual financial advice, the spreadsheets, the market charts, all the complex algorithms.
The stuff that makes your eyes glaze over sometimes.
Exactly. To really get at what actually drives our financial well-being. And the core idea, the thing we're going to unpack today is, well, it's really compelling.
I won.
It's this. When it comes to money, how we behave, how we manage our emotions, that stuff is often way more critical than what we know. About the numbers or the complex economic theories.
Right. It's a huge paradigm shift, isn't it?
Totally. It suggests the biggest financial battles aren't won on Wall Street or, in some trading algorithm. They're won inside ourselves.
That's such a great way to frame it, because for so long, the financial world kind of operated under this assumption of homo economicus, the perfectly rational economic person.
Always making the perfect data-driven choice.
Exactly, which, let's be honest, isn't really how humans work. So naturally, traditional advice leaned heavily on the hard data, the complex formulas, what's seen as purely rational.
You get these prescriptive rules, save X%, invest in Y fund, follow Z formula.
Right, but the reality, the messy reality is that we're not purely rational. Our financial outcomes, in the real world, they're profoundly shaped by all these complex personal things.
Like what?
Well, our emotions, obviously, our psychological biases, we all have them, our unique life experiences, even our cultural backgrounds play a role. So this deep dive into the psychology of money, it really shifts the focus. It's less about just crunching numbers and more about truly understanding the messy, beautiful, sometimes illogical parts of human nature.
It's acknowledging emotions aren't just some side effect. They're often driving the bus.
They're often the main event, yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this then. This idea that our mindset and behavior are the real drivers. That's incredibly compelling. Because doesn't it kind of level the playing field?
How do you mean?
Well, it suggests that anyone, really anyone, regardless of their background or how much they know about finance right now or even how much money they start with, they can improve their money story.
Right. It makes it less daunting.
Yeah, it almost democratizes wealth building. It's less about being some kind of genius or having the right connections or perfectly timing the market.
Which is mostly luck anyway.
Right. And it becomes more about cultivating these learnable habits, self-awareness. It moves the whole conversation from the external market, which feels huge and uncontrollable,
to the internal self, which you can work on.
Exactly.
And what's really fascinating here, I think, is how it demystifies wealth. It suggests that getting financially successful isn't necessarily about being a certified genius or having secret insider info.
Or crystal ball.
Or crystal ball, exactly. Yeah. It's more about mastering yourself. It's about things like self-control, patience, humility, aligning your everyday actions with what you actually want long-term.
Simple, but not easy.
Never easy. But it does raise a really important question for all of us, doesn't it? If behavior is the key, if our emotional reactions and our decision patterns are so central,
then what should we be looking out for?
Exactly. What specific behaviors, what psychological traps should we be most aware of? And maybe more importantly, how can we actually navigate them in our own lives? What does this look like in practice, beyond just the theory?
That's precisely where we're diving in now, because the central theme, the thread running through so much of this discussion, is that financial success seems demonstrably less about your IQ score or your fancy degree or what you theoretically know about, say, the Black-Scholes model.
Right, the technical stuff.
And significantly more about your day-to-day behavior, how you act, and crucially, how well you manage your emotions when things get dicey.
It's that gap, isn't it, between textbook knowledge and the messy, real-world application, the world where fear and greed live.
Totally. You can memorize every financial formula, understand every economic theory back to front, but if your behavior sabotages you...
Like selling everything in a panic when the market drops.
Exactly. Or getting swept up in greed and taking on way too much risk, then all that intellectual horsepower, all that knowledge is sadly, well, it's kind of useless.
And we see these vivid, almost tragic examples all around us. Stories that prove even highly intelligent people, people with immense financial knowledge, incredible success already, They can still face utter disaster if they can't control their emotions or that insatiable appetite for more.
Like, who are we talking about?
Well, take someone like Rajat Gupta. This was a guy at the absolute pinnacle of the business world. CEO of McKinsey, a giant in consulting, served on the boards of huge companies like Goldman Sachs, Procter & Gamble, worth, estimates say, around $100 million.
Wow. So already incredibly successful by any measure.
Absolutely. Yet he was driven by what people described as this insatiable appetite for more, this unending need for even more wealth, more status beyond what he already possessed. And what did he do?
Insider trading, right?
In insider trading, despite all his knowledge, all his success, his behavior derailed him completely. He ended up in prison. His reputation, built over decades, just shattered. His life's work fundamentally compromised.
And that's not a story about someone who didn't understand finance. He was at the heart of it.
Precisely. It's a profound illustration of how greed, that relentless chase for more, can lead even people who are already incredibly wealthy to do unethical, ultimately self-destructive things. It really shines a light on that psychological vulnerability. It can affect anyone.
And he's not alone in that kind of story, is he? You think about Bernie Madoff.
Another chilling example. Madoff started out legitimately successful, making millions, honestly, had a fantastic reputation. But somewhere along the line, whether it was greed or maybe a desperate need to keep up this image of infallible success.
The pressure?
The pressure, exactly. It took over. And he started what became one of the biggest Ponzi schemes ever, defrauding thousands. People who trusted him, friends, family.
It's devastating. And it's not just these extreme fraud cases either, right? Think about someone like Rihanna.
That's a great example, too. Huge star, incredible earning potential, massive fortune.
You'd think she'd be set for life, multiple times over.
Right, but she still nearly went bankrupt. Why? Overspending. Lost something like 82% of her wealth in just 1 year.
82% in a year. That's staggering.
It is, and her financial advisor, apparently maybe in a moment of pure frustration, just laid it out super simply. Spending money on things means you end up with things, not money.
Huh. Sounds so obvious when you say it like that.
It does, but the emotional pull of consumption, that desire for the instant gratification, the fancy stuff, it's incredibly powerful. Even for people who seemingly have endless resources, it just hammers home that point. A high income doesn't automatically equal wealth if the behavior isn't right.
These stories are, well, they're really eliminating, aren't they? They make you stop and think.
They really do.
What's particularly striking, I think, is that these aren't stories about people who lacked financial smarts or didn't have access to good advice. They're stories of people whose behavior, whose unchecked emotions, completely derailed them, despite intelligence, despite existing wealth.
Right. It really forces us to look inward, doesn't it? To think about the choices we make with our money, and maybe more importantly, why we make them. What are those underlying psychological drivers pushing us one way or the other?
Towards prudence, long-term thinking, or towards recklessness and wanting it all now.
Exactly. These examples really show that mastering your own psychology is, in many ways, the ultimate financial skill. It's not about complex derivatives. It's about managing yourself.
Absolutely. And this links into a broader, kind of profound societal observation, one that really encourages humility, I think, and compassion, both for ourselves and for others.
Which is?
It's this idea, not all success is due to hard work, and not all poverty is due to laziness.
That hits hard.
It's powerful.
It is, isn't it? It's this almost unsettling reminder that while, yes, individual effort, discipline, skill, they're vital, undeniably, they're not the only things determining financial outcome.
There's so much more at play. Right. Successes and failures are influenced by this complex web of factors, often way beyond our control. Things like the economy we happen to be born into, the opportunities available, unexpected crises.
And just plain old luck, good or bad.
Exactly. Luck plays a huge role. And this perspective encourages us to look beyond those simplistic, often really judgmental narratives we hear. The ones that put everything down to individual responsibility.
And instead, consider the intricate interplay of all these factors in people's lives, our own lives included.
Yeah, it's a more nuanced view.
It really emphasizes that success isn't, 100% down to sheer effort, nor is failure solely the result of someone not trying hard enough. There are these layers of circumstance, opportunity, and pure chance or luck that play significant, often really underestimated roles.
So recognizing this helps us stay humble when things go well.
Right, acknowledging maybe we had some tailwinds we didn't even realize.
And it fosters more compassion when others are struggling.
reminding us they might be facing headwinds we can't see. It moves us away from those harsh black and white judgments towards a more gray, complex understanding of the human economic experience. It's just more realistic.
Okay, moving on from the critical role of behavior and that interplay of effort and luck, let's talk about something truly powerful in finance. Something often mentioned, but maybe consistently underestimated.
Let me guess. Compounding.
You got it, compounding.
Yeah.
It sounds simple on the surface, right? Interest on interest. But the implications,
Yeah.
they're absolutely mind-blowing when you really dig in.
It's like financial magic almost.
It really is. We're talking about how small, consistent actions, small investments, if you give them enough time, can lead to truly extraordinary wealth, almost unbelievable amounts.
It's not about hitting home runs, is it? It's about singles and doubles consistently for a very long time.
Exactly. It's the slow, steady, relentless march of growth building on itself, where the gains you make start generating their own gains.
And that's where our intuition often fails us, right? Compounding just defies linear thinking.
How so?
Well, we naturally think in straight lines. If I save $100 today, $100 tomorrow, I have $200. Simple addition. But compounding works exponentially. It's like a curve that gets steeper and steeper.
Like that old story about the chessboard and the grains of rice?
Precisely.
Yeah.
1 grain on the first square, 2 on the second, 4 on the third. It sounds tiny at first,
Yeah.
but you very quickly get to these astronomical numbers that are hard to even comprehend.
Okay, so how does this play out in the real world, with real money?
Let's look at arguably the most famous example, Warren Buffett, often hailed as this investing genius, right?
The Oracle of Omaha.
Exactly. Now, at the time the book we're drawing from was published, his net worth was around $84.5 billion, a staggering amount.
Hard to even imagine.
It is. But here's the truly astonishing part, the bit that often gets overlooked. $84.2 billion of that fortune was accumulated after his 50th birthday.
Wait, say that again. Almost all of it came after 50.
Almost all of it.
Right.
And get this, $81.5 billion. The vast majority came after he qualified for Social Security, after his mid-60s.
That's incredible. So the image we have of Buffett's immense wealth that was largely built during what most people consider retirement age.
That's exactly right. It highlights the incredible power of longevity in investing. Now, think about this hypothetical. What if he had started investing in his 30s, maybe with a good chunk of money, say $25,000, and then, like most people, retired at 60? A perfectly normal, respectable career, even if he achieved his same amazing 22% average annual return.
Which is phenomenal.
Phenomenal. His net worth would be around $12 million.
Okay, $12 million is still a lot of money.
Absolutely. It's a fortune by any normal standard.
But
And compare it to his actual $84.5 billion. That $12 million is 99.9% less.
Wow, that difference is just mind-boggling. It really puts the time factor into perspective.
It's monumental. His genius, yes, was being a brilliant investor, but his secret, the real unlock, was time and consistency. He didn't just invest well, he stuck with it for an incredibly long time, decades upon decades. He let compounding do its uninterrupted work.
So the takeaway for us,
Yep.
for the average person listening, what is it?
It means patience isn't just, a nice virtue to have. It's arguably the single most powerful financial superpower we possess.
A superpower. I like that.
It really highlights that endurance. Just the ability to stay in the game, to let time work its magic is absolutely key. We often chase the quick win, the hot stock, the overnight success.
Guilty is charged sometimes.
We all are. But the real game changer, the true path to significant wealth is just showing up consistently, year after year, decade after decade, letting that exponential curve work for you.
It shifts the focus from frantic activity to sustained effort. Long-term vision over short-term performance.
It absolutely does. It beautifully underlines that idea that the most powerful investing book ever written would just be one page.
Yeah. What would it say?
It would just have a long-term chart of economic growth, maybe the S&P 500 over 100 years, and the title would simply be Shut Up and Wait.
Huh. Love it. Simple, direct, and probably profoundly effective.
It captures the essence, doesn't it? Much of the heavy lifting is done by time itself. And to really grasp this nonlinear growth, think about the ice ages.
Okay, ice ages. How does that connect?
Well, geologists figured out these massive ice sheets, kilometers thick, covering huge continents. They weren't formed by sudden, incredibly cold winters.
No.
No. They were caused by slightly colder summers year after year for millennia. Each winter, snow fell. But the slightly colder summers meant a tiny bit more of that snow survived until the next winter. It didn't all melt.
Ah, I see. So a little bit carried over each year.
Exactly. This tiny, consistent difference meant that over vast stretches of time, more and more snow piled up, which then reflected more sunlight, cooling the ground further, allowing even more snow to survive. A feedback loop.
A compounding effect, but with snow and ice.
Precisely. Eventually, these tiny, consistent differences accumulated into ice sheets thousands of meters thick.
That's a brilliant analogy. It really shows, like the book says, you don't need tremendous force to create tremendous results.
It's the persistent, incremental accumulation. Small, consistent actions over vast stretches of time. That's what unlocks transformative outcomes. Scale emerges from patience, not necessarily immediate magnitude.
Okay, so how does this translate practically for someone listening right now? Maybe someone who doesn't have a lot to invest.
This is where it gets really empowering. This isn't just a lesson for billionaires like Buffett. Even small, consistent savings, given enough time and decent investment returns, can lead to really significant wealth.
Like how small?
Okay, consider this example. Saving just $1 a day, that's less than a fancy coffee, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Start doing that at age 18. Put it away until age 65.
Mhm.
Invest it, let's say, aiming for an 11% average annual return, which historically the stock market has delivered over long periods like that.
Okay, $1 a day from 18 to 65 at 11%. What does that turn into?
Over $400,000.
From $1 a day. Seriously.
Seriously, now what if you manage $5 a day? Still not a huge amount for many people.
Right, $5 a day.
That could grow to $2 million.
$2 million from $5 a day. That's astonishing.
It really is. And imagine if a parent started that $1 a day for a child, letting it compound even earlier. That $400,000 could become $2,600,000 by the time the child reaches 65.
Okay, that just highlights the power of starting early. Wow.
The power of starting early and staying consistent. It's a testament to the idea that patience, applied to your finances, can genuinely transform your future. It's a lever anyone can pull.
From that incredible, almost magical power of compounding, which really thrives on consistency and time. Let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk about a concept that's equally critical, but often way more elusive, more challenging for people.
Okay, what's that?
Recognizing enough.
Ah, yes. The moving goalpost problem.
Exactly. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? Just knowing when you have sufficient resources. But for so many of us, especially living in this consumer-driven, always comparing world, it's paradoxically one of the hardest financial skills to master, yet it's vital.
It absolutely is, because that insatiable desire for more, that perpetually moving goalpost, it's a psychological trap, a really dangerous one.
Why dangerous?
It often leads to profound regret down the line. It compels people to take unnecessary risks, often totally disproportionate risks. And, as we saw with Gupta and Madoff, it can even lead to catastrophic downfall, regardless of how much wealth someone already has.
So what's the guiding principle here?
It's profoundly simple, yet incredibly hard to truly internalize. Never risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need.
Okay, break that down.
It means protecting what you've already built, your current assets, your security, your independence. That should be paramount, especially when you're tempted to chase speculative gains or just reach for an even bigger fortune you don't actually need.
Because the pursuit of more can make you risk the enough you already have.
Precisely. The continuous chase without a defined stopping point just ensures that goalpost keeps moving further and further away. And the insight here is that getting the goalpost to stop moving is perhaps the hardest financial skill of all.
Why is it so hard?
Because it requires an internal measure of success, not an external one. It requires you to define enough for yourself, rather than looking around at what others have.
That's so true, isn't it? We hit one financial goal, maybe buying a house, hitting a certain investment number, and almost immediately we set a higher one. We never quite let ourselves feel satisfied or like we've actually arrived. It's this endless loop.
And a huge part of why this goalpost moving is so difficult, so ingrained, is social comparison.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Exactly. Or maybe today, keeping up with the Kardashians or whoever's flashing wealth on Instagram. Our expectations, our desires for what's next are so heavily influenced by what we see others doing. Or, more accurately, what we think they're doing.
Especially now, with social media bombarding us constantly.
Right. We get this endless stream of curated, often totally unrealistic, images of success, fancy possessions, lavish lifestyles. It can easily make you feel like you're perpetually falling short. Creates this powerful sense of envy, inadequacy.
It's a trap.
It is. The philosopher Bertrand Russell observed this ages ago. He said something like, "It is impossible to escape envy by means of success alone."
Meaning more success doesn't cure envy.
Not necessarily. He illustrated it brilliantly. Napoleon envied Caesar. Caesar envied Alexander the Great, and Alexander apparently envied Hercules.
Who wasn't even real.
Exactly, a mythical figure. It perfectly captures the futility of chasing this ever-moving, often imaginary target of more that's dictated by comparing yourself to others. It's a battle you simply cannot win if you want a genuinely contented life.
That's a really powerful thought. Sobering, actually. It's like we're stuck on this never-ending treadmill unless we consciously, deliberately define our own finish line and truly internalize what enough means for us.
Right.
It changes the whole perception of what rich means, doesn't it? Moves it away from just a number and a pile of stuff.
Towards a state of contentment, security, inner peace, maybe.
Yeah. It means realizing that constantly seeking external validation through possessions is fundamentally a losing game, and one that costs a lot, emotionally.
And this brings us to the critical realization. True enough involves identifying and fiercely prioritizing those things that are never worth risking, no matter the potential financial gain.
What kind of things?
These aren't things you list on a balance sheet. They're intangible, but immensely valuable. Your reputation,
Right.
your freedom to make your own choices, your independence from external pressures, your family, your friends, love, and ultimately your happiness and peace of mind.
The things money can't necessarily buy, but can definitely put at risk if you're not careful.
Precisely. The ability to control your own life, your own time, that's presented as the highest dividend money can possibly pay. Sacrificing these fundamental anchors of well-being for relentless accumulation, for chasing more, is a trade-off that rarely pays off in the long run.
So it's about consciously choosing to stop sometimes, to be content, to protect what truly matters, even if it means saying no to potential further gains.
That's the essence of mastering enough. It's an internal discipline.
Okay, let's explore another hero in this wealth-building story. One that's often overlooked, maybe not as glamorous as high returns or a massive income.
I think I know where you're going with this. The savings rate.
Bingo, your savings rate. We hear so much about chasing higher incomes or finding investments with the absolute highest returns. And those things matter, sure. But this perspective shifts the spotlight onto something far more fundamental and, critically, something that's much more within our direct control.
That's absolutely right. The core idea is simple but profound. Your savings rate, which you can almost think of as the gap between your income and your ego, is a more significant, more reliable predictor of building wealth than how much you earn or what percentage return your investments get.
More important than income or returns. That sounds counterintuitive.
Think about it. You could earn a massive income, 6 figures, 7 figures.
Yeah.
But if you spend it all, maybe even more.
Living paycheck to paycheck, just a much bigger paycheck.
Exactly. You won't build wealth. You'll still be financially fragile. Conversely, someone with a much more modest income, maybe just average, but who cultivates a high savings rate through careful spending habits, they can accumulate substantial assets over time.
So it's not just about the inflow, but how much you manage to keep from flowing out.
Precisely. The emphasis is squarely on frugality, on cultivating contentment with less spending. It underlines this undeniable truth. You absolutely can build wealth without being a super high earner, but you cannot build lasting wealth without a consistently high savings rate, period.
And the empowering part is?
The empowering part is that, unlike investment returns, which are subject to global markets, geopolitics, economic cycles, things largely beyond your control, your savings rate is mostly, fundamentally, within your control.
It's a personal choice.
It's a personal decision, a reflection of your conscious choices about spending, your priorities, your lifestyle. You decide how much you spend versus how much you save.
That feels really liberating for a lot of people, I imagine. It means financial success isn't just some exclusive club for high flyers or finance whizzes. It's accessible through conscious daily choices.
It certainly is. And there's a fascinating psychological link here, too. The idea is that increasing your humility, basically, caring less about what other people think of your car, your house, your clothes, directly helps you save more.
How does that work?
Well, when you're less driven by the need to impress others with stuff, when you detach from that keeping up with the Joneses mentality, you naturally engage in less ego spending.
Spending to project an image, basically.
Exactly. And that frees up a much bigger chunk of your income to be saved and invested. The book even provocatively defines savings as the difference between your ego and your income.
Wow. Let that sink in. Savings is the gap between your ego and your income. That brilliantly explains why so many people with good incomes still struggle to save, doesn't it?
It does. Their ego spending keeps pace with or even outstrips their earnings.
This is so counterintuitive for many because it flips the usual script. We're conditioned to focus externally, chase the higher salary, find the bigger return, get the next hot tip. But this is look inward. Look at your spending, your emotional drivers for buying stuff, even your need for validation.
It's a profound psychological shift from external pursuit to internal mastery. It's about controlling what you can control.
And does saving always need a specific goal attached? Like saving for a house or for retirement?
That's another key point. While saving for specific goals makes sense in a predictable world. Well, the world isn't always predictable, is it?
Hardly ever.
Right. So the idea is to also save just for saving's sake. Saving simply to accumulate unspent capital. Why? Because it provides immense flexibility and options.
Like a safety net.
Exactly. It acts as a powerful hedge against life's inherent unpredictability. It gives you the power to jump on unexpected opportunities when they arise. Or, just as importantly, to weather unforeseen challenges, a job loss, a medical emergency, a market crash, without being financially ruined or forced into desperate choices.
It builds resilience.
It builds a robust buffer,
Yeah.
creates a personal safety net that gives you peace of mind and, crucially, freedom. Ultimately, it's about using the wealth you already have more efficiently, rather than constantly needing new sources of income or relying solely on the whims of the market for your stability. Control what you spend.
That's a powerful perspective. True wealth isn't just numbers on a page. It's what those assets buy you in terms of real-life improvements. Which leads perfectly into this idea that true wealth isn't about showing off. It's about unseen control.
Indeed. A vital distinction, often missed. True wealth, at its heart, is simply the income you haven't spent. It's that unspent money, the capital you've accumulated, that sits there quietly.
Working behind the scenes.
Exactly, giving you options, flexibility, and most importantly, control over your most precious, non-renewable resource, your time.
Ah, time. The ultimate luxury.
It really is. And this ability to control your time, to dictate your own schedule, set your own priorities, decide how you spend your days, that's highlighted as the highest dividend money can ever pay.
Is there evidence for that? That control equals happiness?
There is. A significant study back in 1981 by a psychologist named Angus Campbell explored what really makes people happy. And he found that people's happiness correlated most strongly with their sense of controlling their own lives, their feeling of autonomy.
More so than income or where they live.
Far more so, more than income level, geography, even education. That ability to wake up each morning and genuinely say, I can do whatever I want today, or at least I have significant choice in how I spend my time, that feeling is presented as the highest form of wealth.
Genuine independence, autonomy, self-determination.
That's it.
This totally shifts the focus, doesn't it? From
Probably.
looking rich, the external show, to being free, the internal experience of liberation.
Absolutely.
It's about buying your time back.
Right.
Reclaiming agency over your own life, which is something we often tragically forget when we're caught up chasing material things, feeling that societal pressure to display success, thinking possessions somehow equal genuine status or happiness.
And that constant pursuit of displaying wealth, projecting that image of affluence, it leads to this subtle but pervasive psychological trap. It's called the man-in-the-car paradox.
Okay, the man-in-the-car paradox. Explain that.
It illustrates how people often buy expensive things. Luxury cars are the classic example, but also designer clothes, huge houses primarily to signal status, to earn admiration, respect, maybe even envy from others.
Trying to impress people.
Right. But here's the paradox, the often unacknowledged reality. When you see someone driving a really fancy car, what do you actually think? Do you usually think, wow, that person driving is so cool and admirable?
Probably not. More like, wow, that's a nice car. Or maybe, wow, if I had that car.
Exactly. You rarely admire the person, you admire the car. Or, more accurately, you project your own aspirations onto the object. You think, if I had that, I'd be cool, admired, successful.
So people buy things to impress others, but others aren't actually impressed by the person, just the thing, or how the thing makes them feel.
That's the paradox in a nutshell. It's a stark reminder that true respect, genuine admiration, lasting connection, those things tend to come from qualities like kindness, humility, empathy, competence, not from the horsepower of your engine or the brand label on your clothes.
It powerfully reinforces that idea that wealth is financial assets that haven't yet been converted into the stuff you see.
Yes. The real power of money, its ultimate dividend, lies in what it allows you to do with your life and your time, not what it allows you to show to others.
That's such a profound point. It perfectly explains why chasing external validation through stuff is such an unsatisfying hamster wheel. And it loops back perfectly to Rihanna, right?
It does.
Her advisor's blunt question, was it really necessary to tell her that spending money on things leaves you with things, not money?
Hmm.
Just perfectly captures this difference. The difference between having a high income, looking rich, and actually building wealth through control and unspent capital.
Exactly. Overspending, not a lack of income, was her path to near ruin, a stark reminder of unseen control versus conspicuous consumption.
It highlights the difference between being rich, which might just mean high current income, potentially fleeting.
And being wealthy, which implies having genuine options, flexibility, control over your time, built through accumulated, unspent assets.
One is potentially precarious. The other offers lasting freedom and resilience.
Precisely. Wealth gives you the power to live life more on your own terms.
Okay, let's tackle something a bit uncomfortable now, but absolutely essential for a realistic view of finance. The inseparable twins, luck and risk.
Yes. The parts we don't always like to acknowledge.
Right. We love celebrating individual effort, skill, brilliant strategy, and we absolutely should recognize those things. But the reality is, external forces, elements of pure chance, uncontrollable risks, they also play a huge, often decisive role.
And ignoring them gives us a skewed view of how things really work, often an unfair view. Understanding this is so crucial for fostering both humility when we succeed and genuine compassion when we or others face failure. The perspective is that luck and risk are siblings. They're both the reality that every outcome in life is guided by forces other than just individual effort.
We like to think we're 100% the captain of our ship.
We do, the sole architects of our destiny.
Yeah.
But the world is just too complex, too interconnected, too unpredictable for that to be completely true.
Any good examples of this?
Think about Bill Gates. Undeniably brilliant, skilled, tenacious, amazing vision.
Absolutely, yeah.
A giant. But he was also incredibly lucky. Lucky to attend one of the only high schools in the entire U.S. at that specific moment in time that had a computer terminal with an open connection to a time-sharing system.
Wow, that's specific.
That's specific.
Yeah.
It was a truly one-in-a-million circumstance, this incredibly rare confluence of access and timing right when his particular genius could uniquely exploit it.
That's a massive tailwind. That early access, combined with his talent, it undeniably launched him in a way that might not have happened otherwise.
Exactly. Now, flip the coin. The arbitrary role of risk, or bad luck. Consider a close friend of his from that same high school. Someone with similar computing talent, worked closely with Gates, had all the intellectual ability.
Oh?
Tragically, this friend died young in a climbing accident.
Oh, wow.
That stark contrast. Two individuals, similar talent, similar incredible early opportunity, drastically different life outcomes. Why? Forces completely outside their control.
Luck and risk, playing out right there.
Perfectly illustrated.
Yeah.
Recognizing this interconnectedness is vital. It fosters humility and success, acknowledging it wasn't all you. And it cultivates deeper compassion in failure, recognizing it might not have been all their fault either. It reinforces that idea.
Yeah.
Not all success is due to hard work, and not all poverty is due to laziness.
That really is where it gets interesting, isn't it?
Mm.
It's not about downplaying hard work or smart thinking, not at all. It's about adding this crucial layer of realism, a dose of clear-eyed pragmatism.
Right.
It means being maybe a bit more careful who you praise, without reservation recognizing the unseen tailwinds, and definitely more careful about who you look down upon, or judge harshly recognizing the unseen headwinds they might be fighting.
It pushes us towards a more balanced, less simplistic view of why people end up where they do.
So practically speaking, what does this mean for our own approach?
Well, it strongly advises focusing less on specific, extreme, individual case studies. You know, the billionaires who made it against all odds or the massive financial flameouts that grab headlines.
Why avoid those? They seem like they'd have lessons.
They might, but extreme examples are often the least applicable to your own life. Their outcomes are far more likely to have been heavily influenced by extreme luck or extreme risk. Trying to meticulously copy the exact steps of someone whose success was, say, 90% down to being in the right place at the utterly perfect time.
Is probably setting yourself up for disappointment.
Profound disappointment and frustration. The real wisdom lies in identifying broader patterns. General principles and consistent behaviors that tend to lead to sustainable success for a wider range of people across more normal circumstances.
So look for the common themes, not the outliers.
Exactly. And the trick then is to arrange your own financial life with enough robustness, enough resilience, so that a single bad investment or missing one goal or even just hitting a patch of bad luck won't completely wipe you out.
So you can stay in the game.
That's the key. It allows you to keep playing until the odds fall in your favor. It emphasizes this crucial survival mindset. Stay in the game long enough for probability and that compounding we talked about to eventually work for you. It's about endurance, not necessarily quick, flashy wins.
Building on that idea of endurance, that survival mindset, let's talk about building resilience directly into our financial plans because, as we just agreed, the world is full of surprises.
Good and bad.
Right. And our plans need to account for that uncertainty. This means consciously building in what's called a margin of safety, or simply room for error.
This concept, margin of safety, room for error, it's absolutely fundamental, non-negotiable for long-term stability. Financial plans can't be these rigid, brittle things that shatter at the first sign of trouble.
They need some flex.
They need inherent flexibility, redundancy to withstand unpredictable events, and most critically, to avoid irreversible ruin, because ruin is different from just a setback. Ruin means you're out of the game.
History itself shows this resilience, right?
It's a powerful, often overlooked testament. Think about it. Over the last 170 years or so, the standard of living in the U.S. increased something like 20-fold, an incredible amount of progress.
Despite a lot.
Despite a lot. 9 major wars, 4 presidential assassinations, roughly 48 years spent in recession, at least a dozen times when the stock market lost a third or more of its value.
Wow. When you list it like that.
Right. This sustained progress, the ability to not just recover but actually thrive long-term, was only possible because of inherent resilience. Built-in room for error within the system, it could absorb shocks, adapt, and keep going. A system without that margin would have collapsed long ago.
That's a staggering thought. Strength isn't just about growth. It's about the capacity to withstand shocks and keep moving.
It is. And there's a great analogy to grasp the unpredictable nature of ruin and why you need to plan for the unknown. It involves German tanks in World War II.
Okay, tanks and finance. Let's hear it.
During the war, these formidable German tanks were sometimes disabled, taken out of action, not by enemy fire in combat, but by field mice.
Field mice.
Field mice. While the tanks were sitting unused outside cities, maybe during a lull, mice would nest inside them, and they'd chew through critical electrical wires the insulation needed to run the engines.
No way.
Yes. Now, the engineers, understandably, had meticulously planned for combat. Designed the tanks to resist shells, bombs, the expected threats, but the commander of those tanks, they needed to plan for any reason those tanks might be unavailable, including mice.
Wow, that perfectly illustrates it. You plan for the risks you can see, but you also need a buffer for the risks you can't even imagine. The black swans, the mice in the wiring.
Exactly. You have to build in slack for the unknown unknowns. That's the margin of safety.
That's a really powerful lesson. It's humbling, acknowledging we can't foresee everything.
Absolutely. And this brings us to one of the biggest threats to having a margin of safety. Something often described as the devil in finance.
Which is?
Leverage. Taking on excessive debt.
Using borrowed money.
Right. Using borrowed capital to increase the size of your investments or assets. Now, leverage can amplify gains, which sounds great, but it equally amplifies losses, and that's where the danger lies. It turns routine risks into potentially ruinous ones.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Simple one. You buy a $500,000 house. You put down $100,000, so you get a $400,000 mortgage. That's 4-to-1 leverage, $400 debt supporting $100K of your own equity.
Okay, pretty standard scenario for many homeowners.
Right. But now, say the housing market dips and the value of your house drops just 20%, down to $400,000. That 20% drop in the asset value doesn't just mean a 20% hit to you, because you still owe $400,000. It completely wipes out 100% of your equity.
Wow. A 20% market drop becomes a 100% personal loss.
Exactly. What would have been a manageable market correction becomes a catastrophic personal loss, potentially forcing a sale at the worst time. Now, this isn't saying mortgages are inherently evil, but it vividly shows how leverage removes your margin for error. It makes you fragile.
This is so powerful because it really speaks to that goal of being financially unbreakable. Building in enough slack, enough buffer to endure, to survive the inevitable storms long enough for compounding to work and for opportunities to eventually reappear. staying in the game.
And it's not just about the numbers on the spreadsheet. There's a huge psychological aspect to the margin of safety, too.
How so?
It's easy to look at a plan and say, okay, yeah, mathematically I can survive my assets dropping 30%. The numbers might balance on paper, but what about mentally?
Can you handle the stress, the
Exactly. Can you sleep at night? A substantial drop in your net worth can seriously impact your confidence, your mood, your ability to make calm, rational decisions. That mental toll can lead to terrible, panic-driven choices, often at the absolute bottom of the market, precisely when opportunities might be greatest.
So a true margin of safety needs to include an emotional buffer too, giving you peace of mind to hold steady.
Absolutely. It helps you avoid those single points of failure, like relying solely on your next paycheck to cover everything with zero savings. That leaves you incredibly vulnerable when the unexpected inevitably happens. You need cushions, redundancy.
Okay, let's shift focus again to something deeply personal. How our unique life experiences shape not just our decisions, but our entire financial worldview.
This is such a crucial point for fostering empathy and understanding, and maybe some humility too.
This is the core message.
It's powerful, maybe a bit sobering. Your personal experiences with money make up maybe 0.0000001% of what's happened in the world financially, but they might constitute 80% of how you think the world works.
Wow. Say that again. My tiny slice of experience shapes 80% of my view.
That's the idea. What you've personally lived through, what your parents taught you or didn't, the economic climate when you were growing up. That small sliver profoundly dictates your financial worldview, your risk tolerance, your gut reactions.
That explains so much. Why people can react so differently to the same news, the same investment idea, the same advice. Their internal filters are completely unique based on their history.
Unequivocally. Think about people from different generations. Someone raised by parents who lived through the Great Depression will have a fundamentally different relationship with risk and debt than someone who grew up during a long economic boom.
Different incomes, different values, different parts of the world.
Different job markets, different degrees of luck. They all learn vastly different lessons. Consider someone born in, say, 1970. In their teens and 20s, they would have seen the S&P 500 index increase almost tenfold, even after adjusting for inflation.
Incredible growth during their formative years. Very confidence-inspiring.
Hugely. Now contrast that with someone born just 20 years earlier in 1950. During their teens and 20s, the stock market, adjusted for inflation, basically went nowhere. Flat. A period of stagnation, maybe disillusionment.
So two groups of people, only separated by birth year, end up with completely different, deeply ingrained views on how the stock market works, its reliability, its potential.
Totally different instincts. One generation might naturally be more inclined to invest confidently in stocks, while the other might be inherently more cautious, maybe even deeply skeptical.
Based purely on the slice of history they happen to experience.
Exactly. Or think about inflation. People who grew up during periods of really high inflation, like the 1970s, they tend to invest less in long-term bonds later in life. They viscerally remember how inflation eroded the value of those fixed payments.
These personal experiences create biases, emotional triggers. They're hard to shake with just logic.
Incredibly hard. As Michael Batnick apparently said, some lessons have to be experienced before they can be understood. You don't really get the emotional scar tissue or the genuine resilience or that intuitive grasp of certain risks without actually living through some stuff.
Which makes it hard to just tell someone, be rational, or ignore the noise, if their entire lived history is screaming caution at them.
Or conversely, trying to warn someone who's only ever known booming markets that things can go down and stay down.
This is why it's so incredibly important to avoid judging other people's financial decisions, isn't it?
Absolutely critical.
What seems crazy or totally illogical to you may be someone being way too conservative, or someone else taking what looks like a wild risk might be perfectly rational and deeply embedded from their unique perspective, their life history.
It really encourages us to pause, to cultivate some intellectual humility, to consider the unseen forces, the personal narratives shaping someone else's choices.
It leads to better communication, maybe, more understanding.
Definitely. A broader, more compassionate view of diverse financial behaviors, recognizing that everyone's internal logic is built on their own unique foundation of experience. We're all wearing different glasses when we look at the financial world.
Okay, staying with this theme of personalized journeys and self-awareness, Let's talk about knowing what game you are playing.
Ah, yes. This is crucial in the noisy world of finance.
Right. It's so easy to get caught up in the hype, compare yourself to others, maybe copy strategies that just aren't right for your situation.
Happens all the time.
So knowing your own goals, your own rules, your own time horizon, that's paramount to avoiding costly mistakes.
Indeed. Few things matter more with money than having clarity on your own unique financial objectives and, critically, your specific time horizon. Are you investing for next month, next year, or 30 years from now?
Because not everyone is playing the same game.
Not even close. And this is where we have to be extremely wary, almost paranoid, about taking financial cues from people playing a fundamentally different game, different objectives, different risk tolerances, different time frames.
Like a day trader versus a long-term retirement investor.
Perfect example. A day trader might be trying to profit from tiny minute-to-minute fluctuations. Their rules, their metrics for success or failure are totally different from someone saving for retirement decades away. Their strategies, their reactions to news, their definition of risk, fundamentally incompatible.
So if my goal is retirement in 30 years, maybe just passively building wealth, listening intently to someone freaking out about next week's market moves, or chasing the latest meme stock.
Can be incredibly detrimental. It can lead you down a path completely wrong for your game, confusing their signals for your strategy.
And this misalignment, it's often where bigger problems start, right?
Yeah.
Like bubbles.
Precisely. Financial bubbles often inflate and cause the most damage when long-term investors start forgetting their own game and begin taking their cues from short-term traders.
I get swept up in the momentum.
Exactly. Think about the mid-2000s housing bubble, heavily influenced by flippers, people buying and selling rapidly for short-term profit. Their activities shifted the market's focus away from long-term value towards short-term gain.
Or the dot-com bubble.
Same story. Late 90s, you had many long-term investors, even institutions, getting swayed by the sheer euphoria and momentum created by day traders, people who cared little about a company's actual business as long as the stock price was going up today.
The game changed from value investing to momentum chasing.
And that's when things get dangerous,
Yeah.
when the players confuse the games, when long-term money starts acting like short-term money.
It's so easy to get swept up, though, especially with social media amplifying every quick win, every dramatic move, makes you feel like you're missing out. FOMO.
FOMO is incredibly powerful financially, which is why this insight is so important. Stay grounded. Stay laser-focused on your personal strategy, your timeline, your definition of success.
So what's the practical advice?
Actively identify, maybe even write down your own investment philosophy. Make it clear to yourself.
Like a personal mission statement for your money.
Sort of. For example, I am a passive long-term investor. I'm optimistic about the world's ability to generate real economic growth over decades. I'm confident that over the next 30 years, that growth will benefit my diversified investments.
Having that clarity acts like an anchor.
An invaluable anchor. It helps you filter out the noise, resist the temptation of fads, stay focused on your path, build a framework that aligns with your life, your goals, your risk tolerance, not someone else's game.
Let's dig into another fascinating psychological bias that really shapes our financial view. Our attraction to pessimism versus optimism.
Yes. Why bad news travels faster and seems smarter.
Exactly. It feels like our brains are almost wired to pay more attention to threats, to potential downsides. Maybe it's an evolutionary thing, survival instinct.
Could be. And the insight suggests that pessimism sounds smarter and more plausible than optimism, which, paradoxically, makes it more compelling.
There's a certain intellectual weight to being cynical, isn't there? Predicting doom somehow feels more intelligent than predicting things will generally work out.
It does. As the historian Deirdre McCloskey apparently noted, people kind of like to hear that the world is going to hell. Bad news gets more clicks, more views, more attention. It taps into our fears.
Whereas slow, steady progress
Often goes completely unnoticed. It lacks the drama, the immediate emotional punch. It's not news.
It's undeniable. A crisis, a crash, a disaster, it cuts through the noise. Gradual improvement, not so much.
And this media bias plays right into our natural leanings. Pessimists also often underestimate resilience, don't they? They fail to predict how incredibly adaptive markets, economies, and human ingenuity can be.
They extrapolate today's problems linearly into the future.
Often, yes, missing the fact that economies are dynamic systems. There's this sort of iron law in economics. Extreme circumstances, really good or really bad, rarely last forever because supply, demand, human behavior, innovation, they all adapt in hard-to-predict ways. things tend to revert towards a mean.
Markets adjust, people adapt. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But how does this relate to progress versus setbacks? Why does pessimism feel so right so often?
This is key. Progress, especially long-term economic growth or the quiet accumulation of wealth through compounding. It happens slowly. Incrementally, it creeps along too slowly to notice day to day.
Like watching grass grow.
Pretty much. But setbacks,
Yeah.
a market crash, a personal financial crisis, a pandemic, they are abrupt, dramatic,
Yeah.
highly visible. They grab our attention instantly and sear themselves into our memory as these vivid, emotionally charged events.
So the bad stuff is sudden and loud, the good stuff is slow and quiet.
Exactly. Think about the Wright brothers again. In 1889, a major newspaper called Flying Machines Impossible sounded very smart and rational then. The Wrights actually flew in 1903. But widespread media coverage, that really only came with a spectacular crash in 1908.
Wow, the failure got more attention than the success.
Initially, yes. And it wasn't until World War I, 1914, that airplanes saw regular, widespread use. It perfectly shows how progress is gradual, often overlooked, while setbacks hit hard and fast, making pessimism seem like the more intelligent, realistic default, even when the long-term trend is overwhelmingly positive.
Okay, so what's the takeaway for us as investors, as planners, while it's tempting to listen to the doom and gloomers who often sound very sophisticated?
True financial success over the really long haul usually requires an underlying optimistic outlook.
But not blind optimism.
No, not blind optimism and maybe being a possibilist. Acknowledging the challenges, the risks, yes. But fundamentally believing in human ingenuity, adaptation, the long-term arc of progress.
It encourages maybe a barbelled personality approach.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Be fundamentally optimistic about the long-term future humanity's ability to solve problems, innovate, grow, but simultaneously be healthily paranoid about the specific risks that could prevent you from reaching your goals.
Optimism about the destination, paranoia about the journey.
Something like that. It helps you maintain faith in the overall upward trend while actively building resilience against the inevitable bumps and storms along the way. Recognize setbacks happen, but trust the long arc bends towards progress. It helps you ride the wave rather than getting capsized by every temporary squall.
Balancing belief with caution. Makes sense. Now let's explore another crucial concept for long-term success and resilience. The idea that everything worthwhile has a price, especially in investing. And it's not always the price you see on the label.
This is such a vital mindset shift, reframing how we think about market ups and downs, because investing success, genuine long-term gains, they don't come free. They always have a price.
But not like a commission or a fee.
Not primarily, though those exist too. The more important, often hidden price is psychological.
The emotional cost.
Exactly. This price includes enduring market volatility, the stomach-churning swings, dealing with uncertainty, never knowing for sure what comes next, navigating intense doubt, questioning your strategy, experiencing real fear during downturns, grappling with regret over past mistakes or missed opportunities.
That's a heavy price tag.
It is, and the argument is successful long-term investors understand this. They implicitly or explicitly accept that they must be willing to pay this psychological fee to earn the long-term returns markets offer. It's the cost of admission to the compounding theater.
So the emotional discomfort, the mental fortitude needed, that's the real entry fee, not something you can just pay with cash.
Precisely. And the core problem arises when investors don't recognize this, or they refuse to accept that discomfort is the price. They operate under this illusion that they can somehow get high returns without any emotional cost, get something for nothing.
Which rarely works in life.
Right. So when market downturns inevitably hit, when volatility spikes, that psychological cost, the fear, the doubt, the pain of seeing your portfolio shrink, it feels like a fine, a penalty, like you did something wrong.
Instead of just the price of being in the market.
Exactly. Instead of seeing it as the necessary expected fee for accessing long-term growth. And this perception that it's a punishment for an error rather than just the cost of the ticket, that's what triggers panic selling. Selling at the worst possible time, locking in losses, costing far more than the fee they were trying to avoid.
It really is about reframing your mindset, isn't it? If you can see the fluctuations, the dips, the scary headlines as just an expected, unavoidable part of the journey, like turbulence on a long flight,
rather than a personal punishment for getting on the plane,
it becomes much easier to stay the course, to keep your seatbelt fastened and ride it out. It enables endurance.
Absolutely. Thinking of volatility as a fee, not a fine. That's a crucial psychological reframe. It helps build the emotional resilience, the conviction needed to stick with a strategy long enough, to endure the lean years, to hold steady, knowing this discomfort is the price for the potential long-term reward.
Without accepting that fee, the temptation to bail during turbulence is just too strong.
Overwhelming for most. And it sabotages the whole long-term plan, prevents compounding from working. It's a core part of that survival mindset. Staying in the game requires paying the price of admission, psychologically.
Our journey through financial psychology keeps highlighting this human element, challenging the purely rational view. Let's tackle that head on now. The pursuit of pure rationality versus maybe just being reasonable.
This is such an important point. It brings our actual humanity right into the center of financial planning. The argument is it's often way more effective and actually more prudent to be reasonable in your financial decisions rather than striving for purely rational choices.
Why? Isn't rational always better?
Not necessarily in practice, because strictly rational choices, while maybe mathematically optimal on paper, often demand a level of emotional detachment, foresight, and unwavering discipline that's incredibly difficult, if not impossible, for most real humans to maintain consistently over years, decades.
And consistency, endurance is key, as we keep saying.
Paramount. A strategy you can't stick with emotionally is not a good strategy for you, no matter how perfect it looks on a spreadsheet.
So a decision that feels comfortable, lets you sleep at night, and crucially, allows you to stick to the plan through thick and thin, even if it's not the absolute #1 mathematical optimum that's actually preferable.
That's the core idea of being reasonable. Reasonable choices are psychologically sustainable. They're decisions you can commit to and live with, even through market chaos, personal stress, economic uncertainty. They acknowledge your human limitations, your emotional responses.
Got an example of rational versus reasonable.
Yeah, there was a study mentioned, maybe from Yale, looking at a rational retirement strategy. It recommended investing with significant leverage, like a 2-to-1 margin borrowing money, to double your investment size.
Okay, sounds risky, but potentially high reward.
Theoretically, yes. The math showed it could boost retirement savings by maybe 90%. Huge potential upside. However, this same strategy made it alarmingly easy to lose everything when you were young. And critically, the model just assumed the investor would recover from that potentially devastating, emotionally scarring loss and simply keep going with the same high-risk strategy.
Which sounds completely unrealistic.
Exactly. While it might be entirely rational from a pure, cold mathematical perspective, maximizing expected return if you can always recover and stick with it, the source notes that no reasonable person would behave like that in the real world. The emotional toll, the fear, the very real risk of complete ruin. It would be far too much for almost anyone to handle.
That's a fantastic lesson in self-awareness. It's about acknowledging we're human, not algorithms. Our emotions matter hugely. It's about finding a strategy that works for you. Psychologically, one you can actually commit to, not just one that looks optimal on paper.
It's the intersection of optimal and practical, optimal and sustainable.
Right.
And the ability to commit to a strategy, to stay the course even during its tough times, its lean years.
Yeah.
That's highly correlated with long-term performance. Having an emotional connection, or at least a deep conviction, helps you weather the storms, avoid panic.
So it's about finding your answer, not the universal answer. Because different goals, values, risk tolerances lead to different reasonable approaches.
Precisely. There's no single right way, only the way that works best for you, that you can reasonably and consistently maintain over the long haul.
Okay, as we head towards the end of our deep dive, let's touch on one final reality, something many of us overlook, often planning as if it weren't true.
What's that?
That our goals, our desires, they aren't static, they change, often in ways we totally don't expect.
Ah, yes. The end of history illusion.
You explain that.
It's this well-documented psychological quirk where people are really good at recognizing how much they've changed in the past, their opinions, tastes, personality, ambitions, but they significantly underestimate how much they'll continue to change in the future.
We tend to think our current self is the final version, the finished product.
Exactly. We think, okay, this is who I am now and this is who I'll be. But that's rarely true. We are constantly evolving, learning, experiencing things that shift our perspectives and priorities.
So the detailed financial plan we make at 25, aiming for a specific career or certain lifestyle, maybe retiring in a particular place, that might not be what the 45 or 55-year-old version of us actually wants.
Very likely not for many people. Our values shift, our circumstances change, we discover new interests, maybe health issues arise. The source material gives this poignant example of a friend who worked incredibly hard, made huge sacrifices to become a doctor, a long-held prestigious goal.
Achieve the dream.
achieved the dream, only to find, after years of intense training and practice, unexpected dissatisfaction, stress, even profound unhappiness in the career itself.
Wow, that illustrates it perfectly. Achieving the goal didn't guarantee fulfillment, and the reality was different from the long-held aspiration.
Right. It highlights that many of us evolve so much over a lifetime that committing rigidly to doing the exact same thing or wanting the exact same things for decades, it's often unrealistic. It can be a recipe for regret.
Our future selves shouldn't be prisoners of the plans made by our past selves. We need some way to adapt, to course correct.
Precisely, which means financial planning needs to consciously account for this inherent flexibility, this evolution. It argues against making extreme, irreversible decisions.
Like what kind of extremes?
Like assuming you'll be perfectly happy living on a bare minimum income for decades to maximize savings. Or, conversely, committing yourself to working absolutely punishing hours forever to maintain an incredibly high income and lavish lifestyle. Both extremes increase the odds of future regret because they leave little room for your desires, priorities, health, or values to naturally change.
They lack flexibility.
Exactly. It also really emphasizes rejecting the sunk cost fallacy.
Explain sunk costs again.
That's the tendency to anchor current decisions to past efforts or investments that you can't get back, thinking, well, I've already put so much time, money, effort into this, I have to keep going, even if it no longer makes sense or makes you happy.
Like staying in a career you hate just because you spent years training for it.
Exactly. We need to avoid letting our future selves be held captive by the choices, even the logical justifications of our past different selves. Give yourself permission to change course.
So what does this all mean practically as we plan our financial lives? Plan for flexibility, maintain balance.
That's the core message. Plan for flexibility. Maintain balance. Give yourself permission to evolve, to change your mind without letting past choices dictate your present happiness. Build a financial life that can adapt as you adapt, one that supports your ongoing journey rather than locking you into a rigid path.
And how do you build that adaptive life?
The advice is often to aim for moderation. Moderate annual savings, not extreme deprivation, not zero savings. A moderate amount of free time. A moderate commute if possible. Moderate time with family and friends. This balanced, non-extreme approach makes it much more likely you'll stick with a plan long-term because it's sustainable, and it dramatically reduces the chance of deep regret later when your values inevitably shift.
That moderation enables the endurance.
Exactly. It enables the endurance that's so crucial for compounding to work its magic and for you to actually enjoy the ultimate prize. Control over your time and the freedom to live a life that feels authentic to your evolving self.
As we wrap up this really insightful deep dive, here's a thought to carry with you. If the ultimate true goal of money is really about gaining control over your time, unlocking freedom and flexibility, what small, reasonable financial decision can you make today that will buy you even just a tiny bit more freedom tomorrow? This was it on today's book, guys. And guys, kindly subscribe and follow us for more such insights on various books. And also do not forget to join our social media community to stay in touch and get updates.